Endangered mammals of Australia. Australia is home to a unique array of wildlife, but unfortunately, many of its iconic mammal species are facing the threat of extinction. The primary causes of these declines are habitat destruction, invasive species, climate change, and hunting. Some of these animals are at the brink of extinction, with only a few individuals left in the wild, while others are in decline and in desperate need of conservation action to ensure their survival. Australia's mammal extinction rate is among the highest in the world. In fact, the country has lost more mammal species to extinction than any other nation in recent history. The great desert bandicoot, the western ground parrot, and the numbat are just a few examples of mammals that have experienced significant declines in population. Conservationists are working tirelessly to protect and restore the habitats of these species, using various methods, including captive breeding, habitat restoration, and the control of invasive predators. The IUCN Red List, which assesses the conservation status of species worldwide, includes many Australian mammals in the categories of critically endangered or endangered. These species are at risk of disappearing forever if urgent action is not taken to address the underlying threats to their survival. The situation is especially dire for mammals in the Australian outback, which faces increasing challenges from climate change, habitat destruction, and the encroachment of agriculture and urban development. Some of the most iconic Australian mammals are facing severe population declines and are in danger of extinction. Among these are species such as the numbat, northern hairy-nosed wombat, greater bilby, and golden bandicoot. The numbat, once widespread throughout southwestern Australia, is now confined to a small area in the Dryandra woodland. This small, insectivorous marsupial primarily feeds on termites and has a highly specialized diet. The numbats are particularly vulnerable to habitat destruction, as the clearing of forests for agriculture and urban development has reduced their range. In addition, the introduction of predators such as foxes and feral cats has further decreased their numbers. The numbat is considered to be critically endangered, with fewer than 1,000 individuals remaining in the wild. Conservation efforts have been implemented to protect the remaining numbats, including habitat restoration and predator control programs. One of the most successful initiatives has been the establishment of protected areas, such as the Numbat Recovery Area in Western Australia, where captive-bred numbats are being reintroduced into their natural habitats. The northern hairy-nosed wombat is one of Australia's rarest and most endangered mammals. Native to Queensland, this wombat was once found throughout the region, but has been driven to the brink of extinction due to habitat loss, the introduction of grazing animals, and human activity. Today, fewer than 300 individuals are known to remain, and the species is classified as critically endangered. The northern hairy-nosed wombat is nocturnal and burrowing, relying on a specific type of habitat, eucalyptus woodlands, to survive. As part of ongoing conservation efforts, protected areas have been established, such as the Epping Forest National Park, where a safe environment has been created for the wombats. In addition, a captive breeding program has been implemented, aimed at increasing the population of this highly endangered species. The greater bilby, a nocturnal, burrowing marsupial, is one of the most emblematic of Australia's endangered species. Once widespread across the Australian outback, the bilby now occupies only a fraction of its former range due to habitat destruction and the introduction of predators like foxes and feral cats. The bilby is now considered vulnerable and is the subject of numerous conservation efforts aimed at reversing its population decline. One of the main threats to the greater bilby is predation by introduced species. Foxes in particular pose a significant threat as they hunt bilbies for food. Conservationists are focusing on predator control programs, which involve the removal of foxes and feral cats from bilby habitats to reduce predation pressures. In addition, habitat restoration efforts are underway to ensure the bilby has access to suitable burrowing environments. The golden bandicoot, a small, nocturnal marsupial, was once found in the northern regions of Australia. However, its numbers have dwindled in recent decades due to habitat destruction, predation, and competition with invasive species. The golden bandicoot is now restricted to small pockets of its former range, and it is listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. Conservation programs for the golden bandicoot include habitat restoration and the control of invasive predators such as cats and foxes. The establishment of conservation reserves and wildlife sanctuaries like the Mimosa Rocks National Park has allowed for greater protection of these species. Additionally, a translocation program is underway to reintroduce golden bandicoots to areas where they have been extirpated, with the goal of increasing their population in the wild. Though not a mammal, the western swamp tortoise is another critically endangered species native to Australia that highlights the plight of endangered Australian wildlife. Once widespread across the wetlands of southwestern Australia, the western swamp tortoise now exists in only a few isolated wetlands due to habitat loss, predation by introduced species, and the alteration of wetland environments. The conservation of endangered mammals in Australia requires a multifaceted approach, focusing on habitat preservation, the control of invasive species, captive breeding, and restoration programs. In recent years, Australia has become a leader in wildlife conservation, with many species benefiting from targeted conservation strategies. Habitat protection is a critical element of the conservation of endangered mammals. Many species rely on specific habitats that are increasingly threatened by agriculture, urbanization, and climate change. Establishing protected areas, national parks, and wildlife sanctuaries is one of the most effective ways to ensure the survival of these species. Additionally, habitat restoration programs, which involve the replanting of native vegetation and the removal of invasive plant species, help restore critical habitats to support native wildlife. Invasive species are a major threat to many Australian mammals, particularly predators like foxes and feral cats. These predators have devastated populations of small native mammals, including the numbat and the greater bilby. Effective predator control programs are essential for protecting vulnerable species. These programs include trapping and euthanizing feral animals, as well as using biological controls, such as introducing disease or predators that target invasive species. Captive breeding programs are another important tool in the conservation of endangered mammals. Species such as the northern hairy-nosed wombat and numbat have benefited from breeding programs that aim to increase their populations. These programs often involve breeding individuals in captivity, followed by reintroducing the animals into the wild once their populations have stabilized. Reintroduction efforts are also a critical part of recovery programs for endangered species. Reintroducing captive-bred individuals to their natural habitats can help restore populations that have been severely depleted. Programs like these are especially important for species like the northern hairy-nosed wombat, which has been reintroduced to its original habitat through a carefully managed translocation program. Finally, community engagement and education play a vital role in wildlife conservation. Educating the public about the importance of biodiversity and the threats faced by endangered species is essential for garnering support for conservation efforts. In some cases, local communities have been instrumental in conservation efforts by participating in habitat restoration, monitoring wildlife populations, and advocating for stronger environmental protections.